Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are jumping straight into The Jewish War by the historian Josephus, looking at a really critical section from Book 2, Chapter 12. We're going to see exactly how a series of disastrous moves by one Roman governor basically lit the fuse for a massive full-scale rebellion.
Okay, so before all the chaos really kicks off, you gotta know who's who. Let's get our key players straight. We've got Cumanus, he's the Roman procurator on the ground in Judea. On the Jewish side, you've got King Agrippa II, a really important advocate. Cumanus' boss, that's Quadratus, the big guy in Syria. And of course, the final authority is the Emperor Claudius, all the way back in Rome. Oh, and keep an eye on that last name, Felix. He's gonna be a big deal in a little bit.
So, here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at the simmering tensions, Judea on the brink. Then, we'll watch it all explode in a cascade of crises. After that, we'll see how Rome responds with a really heavy hand. And finally, we'll cover the dramatic shift in power that comes out of all this mess.
Right. Let's set the scene. We are in Roman-occupied Judea, and to say it's a province on edge, well, that's an understatement. There's this constant resentment simmering just below the surface, and it gets especially bad during the big religious festivals.
The atmosphere was just incredibly tense. I mean, just try to imagine it. Your most sacred religious site packed with thousands of worshipers, and it's constantly being policed by a foreign occupying army. Josephus tells us this was just standard practice to keep things from boiling over, but really it created a powder keg. And the new procurator, Cumanus, was about to light the match.
And this is where things really start to fly off the rails. What's so fascinating here is that we're about to see how three totally separate incidents escalate, one after the other, each one worse than the last. It's like a domino effect of violence that just spirals completely out of control. We can really think of these three events like rungs on a ladder. Each one takes the conflict to a new height, climbing from what starts as a single profane act all the way up to widespread bloodshed. And here it is, the spark. It's a huge festival, the temple is packed, and a Roman soldier makes this obscene, disgusting gesture at the crowd. This one act of just profound disrespect absolutely ignites their fury. The younger worshippers, they just start hurling stones. Now, Cumanus' reaction was completely out of proportion. Instead of just dealing with the one soldier, he escalates things massively. He calls in reinforcements. The sight of even more armed soldiers pouring into this sacred space, it just turns a volatile situation into a deadly one as people scramble to get away. The result was just horrific. A massive stampede in the temple's narrow exits. Josephus gives us a staggering number, 10,000 people trampled and crushed to death. A religious festival, a time for celebration, became what he called the cause of mourning to the whole nation.
You think it couldn't get worse? Well, it does. If the first crisis was an insult to the people, this one was seen as an attack on God himself. So, in retaliation for a pretty simple robbery, a Roman soldier finds a copy of the Torah, and he throws it into a fire. Josephus says the Jewish people reacted as if their whole country were in a flame.
But this time, the response was different. You have this huge, united crowd, and they march on the Roman capital, Caesarea. But they don't come to fight, they come to demand justice. Cumanus, realizing this massive crowd was not going to back down, had the soldier publicly executed. And that, for a moment, diffused the crisis.
And just when you think you've got the conflict figured out, Jews versus Romans, the whole thing gets even more complicated. The third crisis spills outside those lines. A pilgrim from Galilee is murdered in a Samaritan village, and when Galilean leaders go to Cumanus to demand justice, he just blows them off. And that was a fatal mistake.
Yeah, Cumanus' failure to act was the absolute last straw. Without any official leadership, Jewish vigilantes took matters into their own hands. This wasn't an army. This was pure rage, boiling over. The violence became an unsanctioned war between two peoples, with villages burned to the ground and people of all ages slaughtered. This chaos caused absolute panic, even among Jerusalem's own leaders. They were terrified of how Rome would react, so they ran out in sackcloth and ashes, literally begging the mobs to go home. They knew that Roman retaliation for an unsanctioned war would be swift, it would be brutal, and it would be directed at the entire nation. So with the whole province on fire, Cumanus has completely lost control. So both the Samaritan and the Jewish leaders appealed to his superior, Quadratus, the powerful president of Syria.
And let me tell you, Quadratus does not mess around. He acts swiftly and brutally. He hands out harsh battlefield justice right there on the ground, crucifying prisoners, beheading leaders, before deciding, you know what, this political mess is too big for me. He escalates the entire affair to the highest authority in the entire empire, Emperor Claudius in Rome.
So now we're in the final act. The whole dispute lands on the emperor's desk in Rome, and Claudius himself sits as the ultimate judge over all the chaos that's been happening in his distant province.
And you might think you know how this ends, right? The Romans protect their own? Well, think again. The outcome was absolutely stunning. With King Agrippa II arguing their case, the Jewish delegation actually won. Claudius condemns the Samaritans, he banishes his own governor Cumanus, and he sends another Roman official, Celer, all the way back to Jerusalem for a humiliating public execution. The judgment against Rome's own guys was incredibly severe.
Now, this wasn't just about punishment. Claudius tries to reset the whole board. It was a complete administrative shakeup. He appoints Felix, remember him, as the new procurator, and he rewards King Agrippa II with an even larger kingdom. He's clearly hoping a new team can finally bring some order to the region.
And just as these changes are settling in, boom, the political landscape shifts, not just in Judea, but at the very, very top of the Roman Empire itself. Claudius dies, and the infamous Nero takes the throne.
So, this leaves us with a really critical question. Yeah, a new administration was in place, but had anything fundamentally changed? All those underlying tensions, Roman occupation, religious friction, they were all still there. This particular crisis was over, but you have to wonder, was the stage now perfectly set for the Great Jewish Revolt, which would erupt just over a decade later?